Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Nick.
And you're listening to It Takes Two, the podcast where two people take two movies with the same plot or premise and watch and discuss them.
And it's Christmas time still. So we watched the 1966 TV special, How a Grinch Stole Christmas, and the fantastic 2000s live action, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yes, we did. This is a very Grinch-heavy episode.
Yeah.
I want to start off by saying that I see the relationship between these two films as the same as the relationship between the Peter Jackson and Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings films. In that, you know, you've got the earlier animated film, which, you know, I don't know, the Grinch one is definitely very beloved. I don't know if the Lord of the Rings animated film is.
By you, maybe.
It's beloved by me.
Yeah.
But then you have the live action early 2000s.
2000, yeah.
Yeah, this 2000, Lord of the Rings is 2001, 2003.
Right.
So live action early 2000s adaptation, and they're both separate adaptations of the same source material, but the live action one takes a lot of influence from the animated film. Like, there's shots in Lord of the Rings that are taken, there's little details and there's shots from Lord of the Rings that are taken directly from the Ralph Bakshi animated one, because it was the only previous attempt at turning it into adapting it for screen. Yeah. And I think that's happened with the Grinch as well. For example, what colour is the Grinch in the book?
I don't know.
He's white.
Oh, okay.
He's green in the animated special.
Right.
The illustrations in the book are mostly black and white. And then there's like some bits of red in it, so like the Santa suit and stuff is red, but the Grinch is entirely black and white.
Right.
And he was made green for the Chuck Jones animated TV special. And then, you know, that was so widely accepted that they've just lifted that for the 2000 adaptation.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think it's a very similar relationship in that they're both adaptations of the same book, but clearly heavily inspired by that first adaptation.
Right. Oh, sorry.
I love Grinch.
Yeah, I know. The thing for me is that, like, I don't remember. Maybe I did, but I don't remember. It doesn't hold a place for me in my heart or my childhood memory of watching the 1966 one. Mm. So the Grinch movie to me is the 2000s one.
Right.
So it's like, I think the Jim Carrey version has had some influence over future projects, and I think as well as it did and how fantastic it's made, it did have negative consequences.
For who? Jim Carrey?
No, for us as the audience.
Oh, in what way? Because
without that movie being successful, we never would have got that awful Mike Myers Cat in the Hat movie.
Right, yeah.
Which is awful. It's an awful movie.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, Dr. Seuss didn't want his books adapted live action.
Right.
He kind of even he fought a little bit against the original 1966 one because a previous work of his had been adapted and he hated it.
Yeah.
But he ended up working with them on the 1966 one, whereas the 2000 one was made after his death.
Right.
But his widow, who owned the rights to his films to his works at that time, I think specifically agreed to it on the condition that Jim Carrey got to be the Grinch. She wanted Jim Carrey. I think she wanted Jim Carrey or Robin Williams.
Right.
She was like, it's like, I'll only sign your contract if you're going to get one of these people in. But yeah, it was after his death because he didn't want it adapted.
Fair. Interesting talk about Jim Carrey, because I'll bring this up in the beginning. His makeup process was 9 hours long.
9 hours?
Yeah, and he ended up getting a CIA person to come in and teach him how to resist torture.
Yeah.
Because it was so bad, because he was literally being entombed.
Yeah, everything I read was that it was about 2.5 hours to put it on and then an hour to remove it. But he was like a monster on set to the point that like the person who was doing the makeup tried to retire from filmmaking altogether. And that's when they got in the CIA agent to teach him, torture resisting techniques.
Yeah.
To help them both go through it.
Because it might have been just the makeup, might have been the 2 hour thing.
Right, and then he's got the whole suit as well, with the yak hair and everything.
Yeah. It's great because I don't think anybody else, and this is where the Mike Myers horrible Cat in the Hat movie comes into play, is picture in your head right now, those who know Mike Myers works, those who don't picture Mike Myers. Picture a facial expression. Any facial expression.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Yeah,
he just says stupid stuff.
Yeah. Which is why he works as Shrek.
Yes,
he actually does
Shrek.
A pretty good job as a voice actor.
Yeah, except for the fact that he costs the studio millions of dollars
by changing his accent.
And being like, oh, I'm not doing it anymore if you don't put my accent. Like, okay, drama.
I mean, that worked out well in the end. But, yeah, Jim Carrey, it's funny because there's moments in How the Grinch Stole Christmas where people assumed that there was like prosthetic faces put on him, and that's just how Jim Carrey's face works. He's just got such physicality in that face that he could do those like ridiculously exaggerated grins. And I mean, if you look at the Boris Karloff, the Chuck Jones 1966 one, where the Grinch is doing those grins and stuff like animated, and it is that Chuck Jones Looney Tunes exaggeration, and Jim Carrey
can do it in real life.
So he's obviously taking those expressions and things from that animated version, but he's like, oh yeah, I can do this.
It's also very interesting because the 1966 Christmas TV Christmas special, what was it, 25 minutes long?
Yeah, it's only 25 minutes long.
Versus a full-length action, hour and 40, was it?
It was over 2 hours. I can't remember the exact runtime. Hang on, I can probably find that out pretty quickly because I have the Wikipedia open. Oh, it's 1 hour 44, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was over 2.
Because I remember you paused it 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, I wanted to see where he actually gets into the Stealing Christmas part, and it's an hour and 10 minutes into the Jim Carrey one, but it's 10 minutes into the...
So basically they're the same runtime if you get rid of all the lead-up of his motivations, character development, character introduction, Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey.
I hated it, by the way, when it came out.
The 2000s one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the 1966 one was a big part of my childhood. Right. I mean, I'm currently wearing a t-shirt that's got the Grinch from the 1966 version on it.
Yeah.
I pretty much wear Grinch pajamas year round.
Yeah.
I highly suspect I'm not gonna, I know she's listening, but I highly suspect my mom has bought me another pair of Grinch pajamas. And I suspect it's because I hinted heavily, and by hinted heavily I mean I sent her the link to I said, well, if you're looking for ideas. And then mysteriously a package arrived.
Yeah.
That I can't open till Christmas. But I love the Grinch, and I have always loved that 1966 cartoon, and we used to watch it every year as kids. I mean, I probably at this point watch it most years. I don't think I've watched it every year.
Right.
But I watch it most years if I can. And when the Jim Carrey one came out, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I felt like it was destroying a classic. It was like, it doesn't need to be remade. Why are they doing this? Blah, blah. I've turned around on it. I actually really enjoy it now. Yeah. And like, I think part of that is just growing up. There's a lot, I mean, it's
just growing up.
No, what I mean is that, like, there's a lot of it that, because the whole film is suitable for children, it's... Yeah. There's some jokes that'll go over people's heads.
There's some jokes I will bring up that goes over people's heads.
Yeah, but they did make an effort to make it suitable for children. Jim Carrey improvised a lot of his lines, and he said that he kept it in mind the whole time that he wanted to make age-appropriate jokks.
Yeah.
So all of his improvisation is suitable for children. I think some of the lines that are intended for adults were put in there. It was pressure from the studio, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's not, stuff aimed at adults jokes wise that gets me. It's I think I just relate more to the Grinch. I mean, you said this, you made jokes about it while we were watching it.
Yeah.
That the Grinch, like, the whole point, or, you know, a whole thing in the original, and, you know, in the book and in the 1966 adaptation, is that, you know, we don't know why the Grinch hates Christmas, he just hates it.
Right.
And then he's like, oh, actually, it's nice. The end.
Yeah.
Whereas what we get in this version,
The 2000 version.
the 2000 version, is we get a backstory and we find out that, you know, essentially the Grinch just has really heightened anxiety.
Yeah.
He's got like extreme social anxiety, and most of it caused by being a kind of an ugly duckling type in his childhood. Like, it's literally the ugly duckling story that they do, basically, except that he never goes and finds his real parents and becomes a swan, you know. He just stays the fish out of water in this town where there's all these, you know, happy little who's, and he's something else that's blown in from somewhere we don't know what he is, where he came from.
Yeah.
And he has this deep-seated anxiety. And I feel like as an adult, I look at it and I'm like, oh, I understand where the Grinch is coming from this. And I understand the decision to include a whole backstory so that you can see, first of all, where the Grinch is coming from, you know, and that it's not in isolation, but then also how he comes to the point where he changes his mind.
Yeah.
Because in the original, like, it's just like instant.
Yeah.
Because it's a kid's book.
Yeah. It's the backstory's interesting. So it's very much in my mind in the same mindset as Aladdin. Where Aladdin is an entire story told by a guy trying to sell a lamp.
Yeah.
Versus the Grinch, everything takes place on, like, the I was trying to think of what the quantumanium thing, where do they go in Ant-Man?
Yeah, the
quantum
realm, yeah.
The quantum realm, because they're all on an what are they called? Snowflake.
It says they're in a snowflake, which is interesting because within actual Dr. Seuss, you know, Seussical lore, they're on a clover.
Yeah.
So that's the plot of Horton Hears a Who.
Yeah.
That he picks up a clover, and because he's got his big elephant ears, he can hear that there's an entire civilization living on the clover.
Right.
And they're the Who's. So I don't know, is this just a different colony of Who's that are living in a snowflake?
Yeah.
I do like the idea of them living in a snowflake.
There's the Grinch's origin in the story is super dark. Because they are clearly deceiving children about where Who's come from, and he turns up on Christmas Eve and lands in a tree.
Yeah.
Now, for the children listening, don't take what I'm about to say like with any further on sense. They're having a key party when he arrives.
That's true.
And he is left in a tree all day, and he's only discovered Christmas morning.
Yeah.
And is taken home by two sisters or bachelorettes and raised by them.
Yeah.
Where all the other Who's tend to have families and full, like, mother-father parentage.
Yeah, very nuclear families.
And it's, you know, and because of that, because he's different, obviously he's getting raised differently. But because he looks different, because he's green, and unfortunately, it was the child, the child version of the Grinch is played by a guy who had dwarfism and died in 2002.
Yeah.
So it was the last movie he acted in. But that whole sequence is so twisted. You get the kid Grinch surrounded by people we know, like the future mayor, his future love interest. Well, she's in love with him rather than the other way around. She's probably just the first person who gives him any form of affection, and other than his parents. And he's mercilessly bullied, you know, is shown affection by the most eligible bachelorette in all of Whoville, because it's not until... I don't know why the mayor looks 10, 20 years older than everybody else, but whatever, you know, time.
Oh, you mean as adults?
As adults.
It's because the actor is 18 years older than Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
But even Christine Baranski, who plays, what's her name, Martha May?
Yeah.
She's 10 years older than Jim Carrey as well. So, even though they're all supposed to have been the same age as children.
Maybe the population is so little that they just have, like, multi-age classes?
Possible. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
And also, maybe it's the Grinch doesn't age the same way as the Who's.
Yeah.
Etc.
So anyway, he makes a handcrafted Christmas ornament, which is like an angel, and he's going to give it to the girl, but unfortunately, because of the relentless bullying from the future mayor and his crony, I'm assuming was the assistant mayor, based on how mayors work, the yes man who follows him around,
the deputy, or whatever.
He talks about the fact that he'll never get with her because she's the most beautiful girl and he's got a beard at 8.
Yeah.
And then he just like absolutely brutalizes himself and shaves areas where he isn't growing hair, which is very weird, and then comes to school with a bag on his head and loses his mind and throws a Christmas tree, which she goes, oh my god, his muscles. And then just goes and lives on a mountain by himself.
Yeah.
Which is the dump site for the entire town.
Yeah.
Which is where he gets all his crazy inventions and is able to stack up his Grinch cave.
There's also that implication that he also is the town's garbage.
Yeah.
That's the most suitable place for him is with all the rubbish.
Yeah.
Poor Grinch.
The interesting fact about that is when he literally turns around to the town and says, like, I live in the dump, I know what you guys throw away.
Yeah.
And I was reading up when we were watching the animated movie about Dr. Seuss's childhood and his relationship with the World War II. Horton Hears a Who is basically dedicated to a Japanese friend he had because he was worried about the occupation of Japan by the Americans after the end of World War II. I was like, is this like communism? Like, is the Grinch a communist? Is this what they're getting at? But that doesn't come into play.
It is. He did write the Grinch, the original Grinch, as because he was frustrated with capitalism and the commercialization of the holidays.
The whole intro to the 2000s movie is gross capitalism.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know he wrote the book because of his frustrations with capitalism, but in the 1966 version, it comes across very much that the Grinch assumes that the Who's are capitalistic and commercialistic, and that Christmas is all about the presents and the things, and then discovers that it's not, and it's about the people.
Yeah.
But in the 2000 version, the Grinch is right.
Yeah, 100%.
The people of Whoville, and especially perpetuated by the mayor, but the people of Whoville as a whole view Christmas as being about the presents and about the gifting and making sure that you buy the most expensive thing, and the mayor is buying, he wants to propose to Martha May, so he's like, but you also get this car,
which the taxpayers paid for, so he's also embezzling it.
100%. But it's very much that they have commercialized Christmas and they have lost the meaning of it, and they make Cindy Lou Who have a much bigger role in it, because obviously in the original she's 2 years old. She's just a cute little girl that like he kind of connects with a little bit and is like, oh, actually she's very sweet and whatever. Whereas in the 2000 version, she is depicted as quite jaded. She doesn't like that Christmas has become all about the presents and things, and she's struggling with the meaning of Christmas, and that's why she goes to the Grinch, because she wants to prove that if she can make the Grinch believe in Christmas and love Christmas, then she can get her own Christmas spirit back. And then you get that moment where the Grinch is pretending to be Santa Claus after the real Santa Claus has been and gone. The Grinch is pretending to be Santa Claus to steal the presents, and she catches them and she asks him what Christmas is all about, and he says, why, the presents, of course. And she's so upset by it. She's like, oh, that's what I was worried that it was about. And the resolution then of the film is that they all realize, the town as a whole kind of realize that, we've lost the meaning of Christmas, and Christmas is actually about your family and your friends and connections and spending that time together.
Which, like, in the beginning is not portrayed very well. Like, none of the Who's seem to, like, again, it goes back to anybody who's worked in retail will understand that, like, the abuse of retail staff, the abuse of a post office, the thing that got to me was the wife, I can't remember her character's name.
Betty Lou Who?
Yeah. Just basically being so obsessed with beating their next door neighbour who has the nicest decorated house.
Yeah.
To the point where she steals a stop sign, which then causes an accident, and they're just like, oh, let's go. Like, what do you just injured people at, like, Christmas Eve. The fact that their entire economy seems to be based around Christmas because everything is Christmas related.
Yeah.
The big thing that blew my mind rewatching, because I never noticed it before, they have a giant clock in the centre of town that counts down the seconds to Christmas.
Yeah, so they all, like, when it's like one minute closer to Christmas, they're all like,
yeah, they will freak out.
Yeah.
And, like, some dude walks out and goes, 99% off, and is literally, like, basically stampeded.
Yeah.
Because these people are just so obsessed with buying stuff.
And I appreciate it, because that's obviously, they were looking into what Dr. Seuss's whole idea was in writing it in the first place.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you get into similar themes with, like, the Lorax, for example, which has also been adapted now. That it is very much about what humans have and society are doing to the world and how we've changed things and lost perspective to some extent. So I appreciate that they, in the 2000 movie, even though, like, when I watched it as a kid, I was like, why are they doing this? As an adult, I appreciate that they very much were looking at what his thoughts were and going, well, The Grinch was written to say, the problem, there is a problem with society making Christmas about gifts and about money and about, commercial success rather than, using it as a time to just spend time with your family and spread love and cheer.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely missed the mark without that monoculture. It's interesting rewatching it because I don't remember the last time I saw, like, the movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
Just how fantastic everything is done. And I think that's why the studio and the public and, the future of any of these big giant live action versions of Dr. Seuss books sort of fell flat with The Cat in the Hat, because it's just dead. It's just, if that's the one point I make this entire year. It's just
funny because I enjoyed that Cat in the Hat movie as a kid. When it came out, I thought it was very fun.
Have you rewatched it as an adult?
No, I have not. I don't want to rewatch it as an adult.
Don't rewatch it.
I did. I liked it at the time.
It's like we're trying to censor ourselves a little bit here to make our audience a little bit more general for movies that are children appropriate, but like the jokes in The Cat in the Hat are like, wait, did he just say, like, what?
Yeah.
How is this a kids movie? And it's very much like I think the other one was Dark Shadows, that weird.
Oh, I haven't watched that. The Johnny
Depp vampire movie has all sorts of weird implied scenes that aren't children appropriate. But anyway, it's just very. You can understand the Grinch's motivation and being in his childhood, being the stuff, just the weirdness of everything. It's very interesting. The relationship he has between him and his dog is fantastic and well fleshed out. The Cindy Lou's character is obviously more than just a 2-year-old who's patted on the head after confronting Santa while he's stealing everything. There are, like you said, in the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings stuff, there were scenes that were taken directly out. Like, I think my favourite is him being a snake on the ground.
Yeah, it's great.
That's fantastic.
He's just slithering around.
The fact that he pretends to be the tree the entire time when he's breaking into the house.
And even if you look at like the 1966 one, there's so many influences because it is a Chuck Jones TV special there's so many kind of Looney Tunes moments
Yeah.
to it. Like, Max's the dog's reactions to things is very Looney Tunes sometimes. The moment that really got me was the where he like opens the tree up like an umbrella so he can close it into an umbrella shape. Which is such a Chuck Jones kind of joke. Yeah. It's very, very comical and cartoony. I mean, obviously it's a cartoon, but it's that kind of Looney Tunes style. But even like the way the Grinch walks and creeps around, which then Jim Carrey in the future brings into his physicality in the role, because he's such a physical actor.
Yeah.
He's such a good comical actor.
I think my favourite portrayal he's ever done, I think, was from Saturday Night Live, where he plays the fire inspector. Right. And it is he's a fire inspector that's like literally telling kids to like teaching them about fire safety. Yeah. But then ends up like burning the school down and stuff like that. No. And it's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, it's very old because it's a long time since Jim Carrey was at Saturday Night Live. But yeah,
he should have done more children's stuff. I can't think of many Jim Carrey children's movies. But he would have done such a good job doing that. I mean, I watched a few as a kid. I know I watched Liar Liar a few times as a kid, but it's not really aimed at children. Yeah. You know?
Liar Liar, The Mask is borderline. I think it's PG.
Yeah.
Obviously, recently he's in the Sonic series.
Right. He did do a series of unfortunate events, but that movie it wasn't good, because I had read all those books and I love those books. There is a Netflix adaptation of it, which is fantastic. It's got Neil Patrick Harris in that role. But it wasn't Jim Carrey's fault that the movie didn't do well. Jim Carrey was doing a fantastic Jim Carrey job in it. It just the movie kind of fell short. But and I think it tackled the first 2 books out of 13 and never got a sequel. But yeah, the Netflix adaptation is good. But yeah, I would think I would have appreciated Jim Carrey in more roles aimed at children, because like I said, one of the other people that they would have considered for the role was Robin Williams, who's another very physical, very good comic actor. Both of them do great dramatic acting as well. But Robin Williams, was in a lot of children's movies. So there's a lot of people, in our generation who grew up with Robin Williams as an integral role in a whole load of films children's films from the 90s. And I think we missed an opportunity to have Jim Carrey do the same.
I just realised the first Jim Carrey movie in order chronologically that I've seen is Peggy Sue Got Married.
Yeah.
Which is 1986. Ace Ventura, really not aimed at children.
I mean, I think I watched that as a child as well.
Yeah, not really aimed at children. Dumb and Dumber, Batman Forever, again Ace Ventura. The Cable Guy, which is a very weird movie. Have you seen The Cable Guy?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's a weird one. Liar Liar, The Truman Show, obviously. Me, Myself, and Irene, which I love. It's a fantastic movie. Bruce Almighty, which I have seen. Yes, I have seen that one.
He did do...
and of course, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, he played Scrooge in the Bob Zemeckis version of A Christmas Carol, which is a
2009.
Pretty scary one, actually. It's a pretty scary adaptation, but also just that creepy motion capture that Robert Zemeckis was obsessed with for a while.
Yeah.
So he ironically plays, in 2 different Christmas movies, iconic Christmas movies, he plays... a character who hates Christmas.
I didn't realise he's in The Bad Batch. We really need to watch that movie.
What's that?
The post-apocalyptic desert one with Jason Momoa and stuff in it. And Keanu Reeves.
Yes, we must watch that at some point.
Yeah. That keeps popping up and recommended, and I haven't watched it.
But anyway,
I think there was a missed opportunity by a lot of studios to get Jim Carrey in. I completely agree with you to play more kids directed roles, because you can spend less. And there's not many people who can do what Robin Williams and Jim Carrey used to do, which is ad-lib things to the point where that's better than the line we wrote down. In the movie.
These are people who just such great comic instincts.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said,
And timing as well.
Yeah, and they can both do fantastic dramatic acting, but they have such a talent for just ad-libbing, and the fact that he ad-libbed most of his lines as the Grinch, and he knew the target audience, and he made sure he was making age-appropriate jokes. So the fact that he's not only just coming up with these lines and jokes on the spot, but he's thinking about children are going to watch this, and I want these jokes to be jokes that children are going to laugh at. And Robin Williams would have been doing the same thing, with films like Aladdin, Mrs. Doubtfire, Jumanji. He would have been ad-libbing a lot of stuff that he knew was aimed at children. And just both have such great physicality as well. Yeah. Almost silent era film physicality. Yeah, I think we've had a missed opportunity. I would have loved to see more Jim Carrey kids films. Yeah. But kids can watch this one. Yeah. And it's fun. And they can watch the Boris Karloff 1966 one. I did think also that the putting in the whole Grinch backstory in the 2001 changed the narration for me quite a lot, because it's something that's regarded as a goof or an error a lot, that part of the narration, because it's taken from the book, says that we don't know why the Grinch is like how he is. Yeah. Hang on, I think I have the exact line taken down. So the Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. And then goes on to spend an hour trying to explain the reason. Yeah. So people see that as a goof. But I don't think it's a goof. I think it's done on purpose. I think it's showing you that you can't trust this narrator.
Yeah, also the Who's are so self-absorbed with their capitalistic ideals that they have she has to go around and basically do a proto-podcast where she's literally recording and interviewing his
former
classmates and parents. Yeah. To find out what the thing that bugs me now that I'm now processing it. Mm-hmm. He was run out of school. The teacher didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, the teacher laughed with the kids.
The parents didn't go after him. Yeah. They're just like, oh, okay, he lives in the garbage now. But, better start saving up for Christmas.
So it's interesting. So obviously in the original, in the book and in the 1966 adaptation, the Who's are just, very peaceful and don't really think about anything. Yeah. So they're just, celebrating Christmas, regardless of whether there's trees or whatever. Whereas in this 2000 version, they're so concerned with themselves and how they appear to others. It's very much all about how they look to everyone else, that they don't think about someone else's actual feelings.
Oh my god, it's almost like this movie is relevant in 2023. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's so there's the whole so the idea is that kind of the narrator is from the Who side, whereas I think it's just kind of an overarching narrator in the original and the original adaptation, and it's what the narrator and the Grinch are both voiced by Boris Karloff in that. So it's maybe the Grinch is narrating his own story, whereas in this version the narration is clearly from the Who side of things, we don't know why the Grinch was how he was. But it's an unreliable narrator situation, because we do know if you pay attention, you do know. If you actually ask people what happened, people know what happened to the Grinch and why he is the way he is and why he hates Christmas. But they're so obsessed with with themselves and with being the best that they don't even think about how they hurt him and how they contributed directly to the Grinch hating Christmas and the Grinch living in the garbage and being who he is.
Yeah, it's also interesting that talking the differences again between 66 and 2000, the main it's Dr. Seuss's art style in the 66 version, where he has instruments and devices that are beyond physics and our understanding of engineering. Within the 2000s, obviously there are miniature Who's. Mm-hmm. That would be basically the equivalent of driving around toy cars and things, which is obviously still from the 66 version. There are tiny ones as well. The disturbing part about everything that I came to realize watching it is all of the gifts the point I'm trying to make is in 66 they look handmade or they look borderline magical. The things are borderline magical. Like, how do you get... I don't even know what they are. Like, tambourines attached to chains attached to your ankles, and you shake your ankles and the tambourine. Like, they're floating free form.
There's also, like, when they go out in the Christmas tree, isn't there? There's, like, a glowing orb in the middle of them that raises up into the sky. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
I was looking at that going, hang on, there's something a bit strange.
Yeah.
It's like they birth a star that goes up into the sky.
That's all interesting. It all looks handmade. You know, the pop guns could be handmade. All these things could have been handmade.
Yeah, they give to each other drum kits and things like that, but they're like little smaller drums.
Versus in the 2000s version, you only see the town from the Grinch's perspective and the town from street level.
Yeah.
And there is no... It seems to be all housing and commercial. There is no industrial.
Yeah.
Where do they get their power from? This is where my mindset comes to. It's the quantum realm. Because they're just getting power from the multiverse or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember how it works, and I'm not going to Google it right this second. Where are they getting all these things from? Like... The next door neighbour has a Gatling gun that fires
Christmas lights.
Yeah. So literally the entire... Whatever industry exists in this universe is just sort of on the coattails of following Christmas. It almost is borderline like A Nightmare Before Christmas, where each, like, different season has its own, like... multiverse.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre. Obviously I've gotten a bit hot and heavy for a child-friendly episode, but you have to understand that everything you go and buy in this modern era has an entire industry and a separate industry within that industry to get that thing from where it comes from. You know, the thing I pointed out recently when we were out with some people we know, I won't mention where, talking about the chocolate industry. Everybody in Western countries enjoys chocolate. Chocolate's cheap. You go and buy it. It's there. Oh, it's a snack. It goes in. Chocolate's in everything. Chocolate chips. Chocolate this. Chocolate blah blah blah. The documentary I watched where they went and visited the people who grow the cacao beans and interviewed them and like, do you know what you make? And they had no clue. They're like, oh, it's a drink for white people? We don't know. We just grow. We're just the farmers of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy gave him chocolate that was made from the cocoa beans from the farm.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, oh my god, what? This is the thing we make? And he had no clue. And you're talking about chocolate.
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about something revolutionary to the survival of humanity. We're not.
Yeah.
We're talking about a treat.
Yeah.
And it's obviously for pacing and, you know, for world building, they're not going to explain who's making Christmas baubles, where's the tree farms, where's the transport that's bringing the
well,
stuff
in the 1966 one, they just go into the forest and cut down the tree.
Yeah. That's
how they used to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how it's still done now, but someone else cuts down your tree for you.
Yeah, and you go
sells
buy it from a parking lot.
Yeah. That's how it was in my childhood.
Yeah. It's just so bizarre because I don't even think the Who's question it.
No.
They're like...
But that's the thing. They're so in that 60 or in that 2000 version. They're just so self-absorbed.
Yeah.
All they care about is themselves and being the best and being perceived as the best by other people.
Yeah.
They're so caught up in what other people think of them that they don't think about how their actions impact anyone else.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with situations like the Grinch, where he did care about other people. As a child, he cared about other people, and he got that thrown back in his face, and he was bullied, and he was, treated as different from everyone, and treated like he was a monster, and then he essentially was like, okay, well then I'll become a monster.
Yeah, became the boogeyman.
Yeah, because that's how people saw him. And then it's, Cindy Lou who kind of goes, well, maybe there's good in the Grinch, and then maybe Christmas can be about just us and about being good and about being nice.
Yeah.
So it's a nice message that comes out of it, but it's definitely I've probably lost on a lot of people because Christmas is still commercialized. We do live in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, Christmas is about gifts, and getting gifts, and giving gifts.
It's always been about family to me.
Yeah.
But then, that's my upbringing.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for this year because this is going to be the first time. I mean, I don't want to exclude you here because you are part of my family now.
Oh, okay.
But aside from you, this is the first year since 2016 that I'll have members of my immediate family with me for Christmas. Because that's something I haven't had for a while.
Yeah.
And that's going to be exciting.
Yeah. There was some other point I was going to make, but now I'm sidetracked because thinking about Christmas for you. I don't know. You have to come back to me.
Okay. Do you want to go into some trivia bits and pieces? I didn't take down much about the 66 version. I think pretty much everything I took down is about the songs, I think. One thing that was, I already mentioned Boris Karloff did the Grinch and the narration. When he recorded it, he didn't make a differentiation between the two. He just used the same voice.
Yeah.
But they then edited it in post-production and removed just the high tones in his voice when he was speaking as the Grinch, so that the Grinch sounds more gravelly.
Right.
So that's digitally altered, but they've just taken out the higher frequencies of his voice to make him sound, more gravelly. The song Fahu Forays, the like Welcome Christmas song, the singing at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Written for the 1966 version, obviously used again then in the 2000 version, which the same thing happened with You're a Mean One, was written for the special and then used again. But it's the sound, it's just sounds. It's just like Dr. Seuss sounds, but it's made to sound a little bit like Latin. But they got, after it aired on TV, they got lots of letters in asking for a translation of the Latin used. Because people believed that they had written a song in Latin,
right.
And they had to explain, no, it's just gibberish. And then Thurl Ravenscroft. I wanted to talk about. I've written down one fact about Thurl Ravenscroft here, but I would like to talk more about him because I love him. But what I took down was that there's no credit for him in the movie. You'll have noticed the only person they credit with any acting is Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
They don't even credit the girl who voiced Cindy Lou Who, or there was a man who a voice actor who made Max's noises. They're not credited. But Thurl Ravenscroft sings "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." And he was not credited, so a lot of people believed it was Boris Karloff that did it.
Right.
So Dr. Seuss sent letters to every major columnist in America explaining to them that Thurl Ravenscroft was the singer on the song because he wanted to make sure the people knew it was him that did the singing. I love Thurl Ravenscroft. His voice is what I wish my voice sounded like. Legitimately, like if I could like just change my voice to anything, it would be Thurl Ravenscroft's voice. I just think it's like the most fantastic voice I've ever heard. People will know him as the voice of Tony the Tiger. I think he voiced Tony the Tiger for 50 years, for like Frosties or Frosted Flakes as they're known in the United States.
Yeah.
Are they Frosties here?
I don't think we. I think we had.
You have them?
I've never had Tony Tiger's Frosted Flakes or whatever.
Yeah, well, they're Kellogg's brand.
Yeah.
They're called Frosted Flakes in America. They were called Frosties in Ireland, and I guess the UK and possibly more of Europe. But yeah, the mascot is Tony the Tiger.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah, the three cereals I remember, the four cereals I remember from the 5 cereals I remember from childhood was homemade porridge, Wheat Bix, Skippy cornflakes, and Rice Bubbles and Cocoa Bubbles. And like my mind was blown when Nutrigrain was released, and I was like, oh, it's all like buff people doing like exercise, and I'm like, oh, this is like a high, like the mindset of a child trying to intake information, and you eat them and it's the same stuff just with sugar in it, and I think that's probably why that like until recently, New Zealand for cereal has been pretty limited. There are 50,000 choices, but they're all like the same thing from different brands.
Right. So the other thing that Thurl Ravenscroft did was that he was in a barbershop quartet called the Mellowmen. He founded the barbershop quartet, and then there were, a few, obviously, quartet, 3 other guys in it. But they did the songs and some voiceover work for a whole load of Disney rides when they first came out. So the main one that I always think of is the Haunted Mansion. They did the song Grim Grinning Ghosts, which plays through the Haunted Mansion, and it's also on like the Disney VHS tapes that were put out about the parks and things. They also did the Country Bear Jamboree, the Mark Twain Riverboat, Pirates of the Caribbean, Disney Railroad, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. There's like a whole load of Disney attractions and rides that featured this barbershop quartet, including Thurl Ravenscroft. And he's got such a distinct voice that, like, if you hear any of those songs, you're like, oh, there's Thurl. Plus, he's just got the greatest name. Thurl Ravenscroft.
Yeah.
That's a great name. I just want to be Thurl Ravenscroft. I think that's what I want. I think that's my aspiration in life, is to just, like, I should just change my name to Thurl Ravenscroft.
Okay.
They could have got him, by the way. They could have got him for the Grinch movie, because he didn't die until 2005.
Right.
So he was around. But they didn't. But actually, it's funny, because they did, like I said, they used it in the 2000 movie, but it's Jim Carrey did the singing himself.
Right.
With no alterations. So, like, his voice goes all over the place in it, but that's just Jim Carrey doing Jim Carrey. And he does a really good job at it. In terms of trivia that I have for the 2000 movie, the scene where the Grinch is directing Max before he goes to steal Christmas, Jim Carrey spends that whole scene making fun of Ron Howard, who directed the movie, and mimicking his directing styles. Right. And it was like done as a joke, but Ron Howard loved it so much that he was like, yeah, we'll use that, we'll put that in the movie. We've already talked about the makeup stuff. The makeup stuff is nuts, but we've talked on it, so we don't need to go into it. One of my favorite pieces of trivia about this, and I'm sure this is one that people have heard a lot, is the scene where he pulls the tablecloth out from under all the stuff?
Yeah.
That was scripted as him just like pulling it and knocking everything off it because he doesn't care. But Jim Carrey accidentally pulled it so well that it came out and everything stayed where it is. So that's why he walks back and just smashes it all off the table. Because that was, ad-libbed, and then they thought that take was fantastic, so they kept it in. Because it makes it all, almost extra funny that he's has to go back and do it. I wanted to talk about this and credit the person whose name I was able to find. Seuss Cousins, not related to Dr. Seuss, just pronounced that way. Seuss Cousins was a Los Angeles-based sweater designer, and she and 2 other knitters produced 250 pieces of original knitwear for the movie.
Wow. So,
like, all of the sweaters, the jumpers that you see people wearing, the knitted jumpers, are all hand-knitted. They did it in 120 days, so that worked out at 83.3 sweaters per person in a span of 120 days. Which is nuts. That's so much knitting. So I just wanted to, Seuss Cousins. I just wanted to throw her name out there because that's a feat. That's incredible. This is the highest grossing Christmas movie since Home Alone.
Right.
So fitting that we're talking about it, 3 episodes after we talked about Home Alone?
Yeah.
Obviously the narration in this version is Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yep.
So there's, there was a note that kind of mirrors the casting of Boris Karloff in the original, because they both were actors who had their careers kind of revived by being in a horror franchise.
Right.
Because obviously, Boris Karloff played Frankenstein's monster, and Anthony Hopkins was Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
In a The Silence of the Lambs, and then in later films. And then, so I did take down the budget and box office of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the 2000 version, because obviously the first one was a made-for-TV special, so that just doesn't exist. So it was a budget of $123 million, which is insane to me. That's a huge budget for a film like that. And at box office, $345.8 million. So that's in cinema, right? But it also, within its first week of release on DVD, it sold 8.5 million home video units. So it was 3 million DVD copies, 4 million VHS copies.
Right.
And it was the best-selling holiday home video title of all time. And it ranked as the second highest opening week in home video sales for any live-action film, the first being Titanic.
Wow.
And it said it went on to join Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Shrek, and The Mummy Returns as one of the only 4 films to sell more than 2 million DVD copies during their opening weeks.
Wow.
So obviously Titanic was VHS era.
Yeah.
So it did, not only did it do great in actual box office, but then home video was ridiculous. Huge home video release.
I just had a flashback to a memory of childhood.
Yeah.
We're being like, we're going to watch a movie. Oh, what movie are we watching? We're watching Titanic. And me being like, that movie's boring. There's like 3 hours before the boat sinks.
Yeah, because I haven't watched Titanic as an adult, I don't think. I think I've only seen Titanic through the lens of me being a child, being like, this is a long, boring film. I don't think I've rewatched it.
We have to watch it for the podcast, don't we?
Do we? Oh, we will, yeah, at one point.
Yeah.
We will be watching it for the podcast. There's quite a few Titanic-related movies out there.
Yeah, the Poseidon Adventure and the there's lots of ship sinking movies.
Yeah, no, I think we're watching it with another that's about the Titanic, but not...
It's not the ones that I'm going to say, are they?
The animated ones?
Yeah, it's not
no, we'll watch those together, because there were 2. For those who don't know, there were 2 animated Titanic movies that came out in 2001. They both came out in 2001. They're both made by Italian animation studios, different Italian animation studios. They both feature talking mice.
They both come off as sequels. Like the
so one of them's called Titanic, or one of them called The Legends of the Titanic, and the other one's called Titanic: The Legend Goes On, but they're not related to each other in any way. And I've only seen one of them before, but in it, a giant octopus holds the Titanic together for long enough for everyone to escape and survive. So it's revisionist history as well. A really strange set of movies, but at some point we'll be watching those. I think it'll be far down the line because we might get to more well-known and good movies first, before we get to like the absolute terrible animated films. But if you want good animated films, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, 1966, 25 minutes long.
Yeah.
If you're a child watching this and you haven't seen it before, ask your parents if they're able to get a version of it. I think it's on YouTube and things like that. So, like I said, it's only 25 minutes long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you should watch it if you haven't watched it before. It's very fun. You can get the book, because it is a book, and the book is for children. And Dr. Seuss, who wrote it, wrote a lot of other children's books. So your parents might buy you some of those, or family or friends. Or they might not, because Dr. Seuss did some questionable things in his life that some people don't support.
Yeah. I won't say the poem that's famous.
But I loved Dr. Seuss books growing up. It's funny, I was thinking about this because we talked obviously very recently in our last child-friendly episode about Jurassic Park and about the fact that at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, where I spent some family holidays, there is a Jurassic Park island, but one of the other islands is Seuss Landing, and it's all rides related to Dr. Seuss properties.
Interesting.
Including like a redfish, one fish, two fish, redfish, bluefish ride, and a few other things. And that was a book I had as a kid that I really enjoyed. One fish, two fish, redfish, bluefish.
Right.
I think Dr. Seuss was really good at writing for kids.
Yeah.
Writing, and Fox and Socks was another one that I really liked as a kid. Green Eggs and Ham. Yeah, he had some good books that were, at different reading levels. so you could read along with them. But also he made up a lot of words. There's a lot of silly words in those books. They're not real words.
Yeah, the one that always sticks with me is the escalation of warfare and weaponry. I can't remember the book title.
I don't think it's called The Escalation of Warfare.
It's very, very interesting, and it just starts off with like one who like walking a perimeter fence with like a switch.
Is it the Butter Battle Book?
That's the battle, but yeah.
The Butter Battle Book.
Yeah. And it just escalates to the point where they have the bomb.
Right.
It's obviously his criticism of like from World War II to World War.
And he wrote political cartoons as well.
Oh yeah, he was a huge political cartoon writer.
Yertle the Turtle is another one that I liked a lot when I was a kid. I had to double check that was Dr. Seuss because I also liked ECO Trot, which is Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
Two turtle related books. Yertle the Turtle. Yeah, he's a lot of rhyming words. I also had which I think is a good book for small children. I had a Dr. Seuss ABC book.
Right.
I think one of our listeners mentioned having that for one of their children.
Fair enough.
I think. But yeah, the Dr. Seuss ABCs is fun, and there's some letters in there that are, where some of the words are made up as well. But they're fun and nice illustrations and things.
The point I was going to make earlier
is
this is a second movie we've watched this week that's had a mailman as a side character.
Oh yeah.
Which lets me get on to some calls to action. If you aren't following us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on YouTube right now, thank you very much. But if you aren't following us on YouTube, we do have a YouTube page. It is in the footnotes or
show notes.
Show notes, thank you. You can find us everywhere online, including our website, ittakes2.co.nz.
Yeah. You can join our Discord and tell us what you think of the episode or what you think we should do in future episodes.
Yeah. Suggestions, memes.
Memes. We love a good meme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us this Christmas, and we hope you spend some time with family and your Christmas decorations, presents, and tree aren't stolen by an anti-capitalist who lives in a mountain.
But do appreciate Christmas as a time to spend time with your family.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Not just about
gross
presents and money and looking the best. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, we hope you're also having a good time.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are not a lot of movies about other religious-based holidays.
We will at some point do some Hanukkah movies because there are.
So are you suggesting 8 Crazy Nights with Adam Sandler?
No, I was going to say that there are Hallmark Hanukkah movies that we can watch.
Oh no!
So
you said the great thing with the really awful thing.
Yeah.
Oh, just to clarify, I mean Hallmark is the terrible thing. Don't misconstrue that as anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but we will. I mean, if there are other different holidays that have movies that are similar that we can compare, we'll do them. We should watch. What have we got time today? We should have time today. We should watch the Night Before. Your favorite? Yeah, The Night Before. I like that movie. Yeah, I don't know what we'd compare it to for a podcast episode. We can watch movies outside. I know, but I was talking about for the podcast. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying if we find some that are similar enough to compare, we will. But there will, at the least, at some point, we'll be doing some Hallmark Hanukkah movies. Good. So bad for me. I think I also have some Christmas horror movies that for one year, but we'll get to that. Yeah. Those are a few years away. Those could be November episodes. It's between October and December. No, I think it'll be years where we have 3 December episodes. Ah, fair. Yeah, we'll do something different for one of them. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time. Happy holidays. Goodbye.